Good evening and welcome back to the channel. I'm Catherine Wilson from Queenie Quilts, and today we are going to be talking about getting ready for class. So the most often question I get asked is, how do I make the most of my class time? If you've been around a while, if you've been here before, if you've met me personally, you know that I teach nationwide, but primarily in Southern California. Both Judy Niemeyer, Quiltworx style patterns like this one. This one is my design, from one of the mixers. We're calling it Midnight Sparkle at the moment. I don't know what it's going to eventually be called, but that's what it's named right now. And I teach paper piecing throughout Southern California. And lots of students want to know how to best use their class time. How do I make sure that I can get the most out of class time? What can I do before class to get ready? What do I need to bring? All that kind of stuff. And so I'm going to do a quick video series here about the steps to prepare for class. And the first step is really to prepare your papers and to prepare your pattern. Now, there's lots of ways to do this. There are some essential and some optional things, but I'm going to show you my process just so you have an overview of what I do. I'm going to talk about supplies and stuff first. I'm going to go through that first. And then I'm going to turn the camera around so you're facing my cutting board, and I'm actually going to cut one out, or at least a portion of one out, so you can see me get it ready. And I'll talk through the specifics of cutting the papers and all that stuff. But first, let's talk about what you need. Number one, you need a pattern, right? So they come in a couple different formats depending on what you're doing. So this one is Sparkle. This is the released pattern. It looks similar to what's on the wall, but mine is a spin-off of this. So this one is called Sparkle. It was released last fall. I'm going to be teaching that pretty soon, and this is an offshoot of it. And then this one is called Cinnamon Sticks, and it also is sort of an offshoot of this one, or this one's an offshoot of it. So I basically merged those two quilts together using one of the mixer series. So you might have a mixer, which would be more similar to these, which are a set of replacement papers. So your pattern can really come a couple of different ways. If you've done a mixer, you get individual booklets for each round of the quilt. So the A blocks, the B blocks, the C blocks, the D blocks. If you bought it as a finished pattern like Sparkle or Cinnamon Sticks, it'll all be in one bundle. But you basically need whatever your project is going to be. So whatever project you're going to do, you need its papers, its components. You're going to need a ruler. You're going to need a rotary cutter. You're going to need some plastic page protector sheets. So I buy these at Walmart or Target, Staples, anywhere that sells office supplies usually has them. And then a binder. I rotate through about 10 binders. So I have them, you'll see this one. The pages are actually all plastic sheets are already in it because I took another quilt out of it once I had made it, put it somewhere else, and now I'm going to refill it with this quilt. Then you're going to need some Ziploc bags. So you need at least the gallon size. If I can find them, I like this size, which is the jumbo. They're 2.5 gallon. You can get these at the dollar store. When you go to get them, it seems really expensive because it's $1 for 5 bags. Whereas this has 40 bags in it, but these are usually like $9. So this is actually cheaper. It just seems bad as you're getting them. So anyway, and then if you did your quilt in Quiltster, you would want to print off your front image out of Quiltster. So this is the image of Midnight Sparkle from Quiltster. So I have all of those items. And that's really all you need to get ready and prep your papers for class. So I'm going to spin you around. so you can see me work on the work table, and I'll meet you back here. All right, so we're back at the work table. You can see I have all my things in front of me. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my pattern. So in this case, we're gonna prep cinnamon sticks. I'm gonna be teaching this one in June, so I gotta make a sample. So I'm just gonna open it up, just like that. I'm gonna keep this bag. This becomes my scrap bag, so that as I finish components, I put all my scraps in here until the project is finished. Okay, so I'm going to have a number of different things in my packet, right? I'm going to have paper piecing papers, right? So these are papers that you sew on or prep fabrics with. So I'm just going to set those aside. You're going to have assembly graphics, things that look like this. In this case, there's a lot of them. And then you're going to have actual instructions. So this is your instruction booklet. It has step-by-step on how you actually assemble this quilt. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one, which is we call this the cover sheet. I'm going to slide this in a page protector, which sometimes is easier said than done, especially when on camera. So it can be a little bit tight, but I slide it in just like that. And then this Quiltster one, depending on what I have for a binder, I like to have one that has the clear pocket on the front. This one does not have a clear pocket. So in this case, I would put this in one of these as well. So I would just slide this in here. And in this case, I've just printed out the image because I built mine as a kit, so I have all the fabrics together. But you might also have a couple of pages that have the fabric details. I would put them each in their own little pocket folder here. And then I would put these right in here. So as for which one you put first, that's really a personal preference. It doesn't really make any difference. You just need to know which way you like it and figure it out. I like to have this one first, then Judy's picture, and then my pattern would start here. So to get my pattern in here, I'm simply going to take this. Now I've had a look at this. This is a pretty thick pamphlet. It's 32 pages, so I don't feel like I could cut that. Plus it has a staple in it. So I don't feel like I could cut that in one go, i.e. I can't, if it's a small pattern, I would leave it folded and I would cut right here along where that staple is, but those also generally don't have a staple. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this at a 16th, and I have a 16th inch mark on my ruler. So I'll actually put the 16th inch mark on the staple as my guide, and then cut. Make sure that comes apart. Sometimes you do have to go through twice, which is more proof that it couldn't have done it through all of them. Right? And then I'm going to turn this over. Now I'm right-handed, so I do turn it and cut the other way, just because I have a little more control of my rotary cutter that way. And because I've cut that little section off, which this one didn't actually cut, so let's give that another go. These should slide straight into your page protectors, right? So I just take them. They should slide in pretty easily because they're going to be just a little bit smaller, right? Right. And I just slide them all right in. Kind of try to be efficient about how I flip them over so they're all going the same way, so that when I go to put them in my binder, it's a little easier. So I just keep going and get them all taken care of. Now, most patterns come with one cover sheet and 15 to 25 pages worth of instructions. There are a few exceptions. The Technique of the Month quilts, those actually come with each of the rounds broken out, very much like how a mixer would be delivered. But mixers don't have cover sheets. So for those, I would take each cover sheet and its associated pattern components and put each of them, I do this exact same thing, put each of them in a protector and then put them back in the order that they came in my booklet. So those will have a booklet number on them, and I put them back in booklet number order because generally that's how the order in which a class is taught for a Technique of the Month program. So just got a few more here to do, so just gotta get these all finished. So once I've gotten everything stuffed, I'll then put these aside and put them in my binder. Now, in this case, since I'm on camera, I'm going to put these in my binder separately because you don't need to watch me put them in a binder. You know how a 3-ring binder works. So for right now, I am just going to set these aside and we'll pretend that I put them in my binder. Now we're going to work on these. So these are the assembly graphics. I just put these in the outside pocket on my binder because I'm not really going to look at them. They're not really going to make a lot of sense until I've made a bunch of units. Okay. So now we're going to talk papers. So these are my Quiltworx papers for this project. They're usually in little stacks of 4 or 5. Generally, they're with like ones, but that's not a guarantee. So you notice they're going to have numbers on them. So in this grouping, I have a 561, another 561, a 562, a second 562. Okay, so I have 2 561s and 2 562s. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to grab that stack from my pattern. And here on the left hand side, now this does move around depending on the pattern, but generally it's right here on the left. There's a little key, and that key tells you what papers should be in your pattern. And one of the first things I do is I check and make sure I've got all my papers. So I would go through and say, oh, I have my 561s and I have my 562s, right? I know that when I got my pattern, everything was in here. I would then go through each of these piles. Now, some of these are going to have TP papers, right? So this one that we opened earlier that had the 561 and 562s did not have any TP papers because its templates, which is what a TP paper is about, were actually on the page with the units themselves. So these are labeled the unit number. In this case, they happen to be A's. And those are what we're going to sew. And these templates that say Unit A template layout sheet, those are how you're going to cut your fabric. So in some cases, that template layout sheet is a separate piece. So in this piece, this is the chutes and ladders star border. So in this one, in this bundle, you have NP papers, right? So there's an NP 900, a second NP 900, an NP 901, and a TP 712. That means that these templates could not fit on the papers with their units, and so they are separated onto their own paper. So again, I do the same thing, right? I'm going to check off that I have 2 900s, 1 901, and 1 712, right? I know I have all of my units included. I would do that through this whole thing. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to show you me checking them off because really you'll be bored. But I am going to show you the next step, which is once I've got them all here and I know that everything is here, I'm going to prep the actual sewing papers and put them into their bags. So there's a couple rules, a couple things to keep in mind as you prep them. So the first thing I want to do is generally clean off your desk. Don't try to do stuff with everything out all at one time. You're bound to make a mess. And or cut through something you didn't want to cut through. So that's the first thing I do is I give myself as much space as I can have, which means I spread all over the house. Let's be honest. Okay, put the trash in the trash. And then I'm going to open one of these sets of papers. And the first thing I do is really just look at it. So these are all T1s, right? These 8 here, there's 8 T1s. And then there's some strip piece sections, right? Which are these little sections here. So we've got some 2s, some T2s, some T3s, some T4s, and some T5s, right? And then we've got some strip piecing templates, some regular templates. You know, there's a lot of different items. Oh, and look, if I go over here, this page is essentially the exact same because it is a 902. It is. It's a 902. I don't know if that's in frame or not. Yeah, so it's a 902 as well. So these are identical. Now, don't attempt to cut these on top of each other. You will make a mess. You will be angry. And I will have to replace your papers. Now, if you made that mistake, it's not really a big deal. We can just call Quiltworx and get you a new set of papers. It's not really a problem. But you won't be able to start on that section of your project immediately because you'll need new papers. All right, so I'm just going to do a quick analysis of my paper. And I can see that these units here, these T3s, these T2s, these T4s, and this T5 don't have any space between them, right? So if there's no space between it and it's part of one foundation sheet like this, you're going to cut out that unit as a unit. So all we're going to do is cut it out as a big unit. So I'm going to rough cut around the edge. I like to cut them out about 1/4 inch, 1/8 to 1/4 inch outside the line. I have done it often enough that I can eyeball that most of the time. But if they're close together, sometimes they're very close together so they can fit them all on one sheet and therefore reduce the cost of the pattern. Then I will use a ruler, but in this case, I'm pretty confident about this one. I'm not too worried about it. It's not super close. And then I'm going to put this T2 in a little pile. And then I'm just going to cut out the rest of the ones on the sheet. Now in this case, if the letter is the same, so the front letter is the same, and the unit is numbered, I know that this is a subunit of the same unit, right? Which means that those are all going to go in their bag together. So that unit is a T unit, and these individual papers are subsections. So these are all going to go into one bag. So sometimes you will have multiple different units on one page. So you might have an S unit and a G unit on the same page. In that case, you need a unit S bag and you need a unit G bag. In our case, we just need a T bag. So we're just going to put them all in a little pile for right now. And this is the T template. So this is our fabric cutting template for that same unit. Oops. Now, you notice that I cut that incorrectly because I didn't use a ruler, right? And I cut into my shape. I'm not that worried. This is not a piecing unit, and we're just going to use it to cut out fabric. So I'm not that worried about it because I don't need to be that precise at the point that I would be using it. So I'm just going to set it aside. This again is another template, right? So this is the template. If I look at it, it says Unit T1, template T12, layout sheet number 2, and it says it's section 2, which means that for Unit T1, because that's the T1, right, /2, that's section 2, that is the template to cut out the fabric that becomes the spike in that template, in this unit right here. So these are our T1s. Now, there are 8 of them, and they are individual. So, if they are individual, like these are, I am just going to basically get this into a size that I can manage a little easier, and then I just cut them apart. Okay. And then I just cut them apart like this. We don't need to be super exact on any of this cutting at this point because we're going to clean this unit up after we've done the piecing. So I would take these. There's usually a paper clip here on the top of my desk, but of course, because I'm on film, there won't be. But grab yourself a paper clip. I have some right over here. And I'm just going to put a paper clip to keep those 8 units together, right? Now, the other thing that I'll do, I know that this template is for that little thing. I will actually put it right here with it until I've got these all together. Push all your trash away. These little components here are basically spacer units. So they're solid pieces of fabric rather than pieced components. So we have a little template for them so we can cut them out because they're going to be, these are very triangular, but sometimes they're quite funny shaped. So I'm just going to put them in a little pile all together because these get added to that unit after it's assembled. So again, I'll gather my trash, put it in a little pile over here. And I will put a paper clip on all 4 of these. All right. And then this one, I'm going to take a look at it. I'm just going to read it right here. It's unit T1, so it goes with this unit, right? Because this is our T1 unit. and it's the background piece. So there's 2 and 2. So basically when you cut out this shape, you cut out 2 blocks worth of background. So you would need 4 pieces of fabric under here. So that's how the general math works. But for the purpose of this video, this is really just getting your papers ready. So I would then take that, put it with the one we already had with it, put them all together like that. Again, get rid of my trash. And now I have another page of these same units to take care of, right? So I have another one of them to get ready. So I would do the same thing. I would put them with their friends, and I would put all of my T1s in here. So instead of having 8 that I have right now, I will actually have 16, and I'll have 2 each of all of these. Now, this is a fairly big grouping, right? So I'll take all of these T's. I actually usually fold them over and put so just so they fit in the bag and the tails don't get all messy. I put my 3 little piles together. And then I just slide all of this into a Ziploc bag. Right? Now, there was a time in my life when I was a new Quiltworx beginner piecer that I would have labeled this bag. But now I'm lazy and I don't label my bags because I can see right here that this is a T1 bag and I know what I'm looking for now, so it's not as important. And I then don't feel the need to replace the bags every time. So I just recycle the bags in general. In this case, I pulled one from my home Ziploc stash. I didn't even pull this from the sewing room. I pulled it from the kitchen. Anyway, where's the sewing room one? I think it's actually packed away. I'm pretty sure it's in the machine that's going with me to teach tomorrow, but which is at the front door, ready to go out the door. So I stole this from the kitchen. Anyway, so that is really how I get myself ready for class. And that way, when I come into class, I have ready for my instructor, whether you come to my class or you come to someone else, or you go to see Judy at a Quiltworx University or even at her retreat center, that you've done everything that you can to be as ready as you can for class. Now, if you have taken a class before, right, and you have already, you know how to prep your fabric, I would come to class with your fabric prepped if possible. Now, as a new person, I would not do that because there are tricks that are in the pattern, but that are much easier to explain in person from a cutting and stacking perspective, that you will learn regardless of who you are learning from in the Quiltworx family. So whether you're with me in a class or you're with another instructor, or even if you've just read the instructions very thoroughly and you understand the process of stacking up your fabrics and cutting them apart so that you're doing everything all at one time. If you've covered that before or you figured it out, the more you have prepped for class, the more you'll get done. And we all know that the more you move forward, the more motivation you have to get them finished. That's the same reason that I put things on the wall, because that way every time I walk through my living room, I can see my sewing room and I see it halfway finished and I'm inspired to sit down at my machine instead of watch YouTube quilting videos. Oh wait, I want you to watch this video. So anyway, watch this video. Anyway, if you would like to see more about getting ready for class or any other topics, I am happy to help. Drop me a line in the comments, subscribe to this video, and I'll see you next time. Until then, happy quilting.